Welcome, everybody, to another week of the CSL MTG Arena League. I'm your host, Rob Gonzalez, otherwise known as Rob AJG. And as you can tell, I'm a little under the weather, but here's the thing. It's Valentine's Day, and if I wasn't under the weather, I'd probably be out, celebrating this thing with my wife, and she'd probably be a lot happier with me. But instead, I'm too sick to go out, but not sick enough to do some magic. So we're going to do that today, where we're going to be getting closer and closer to our grand finale that's going to be happening in Las Vegas at the HyperX Esports Arena, where one team is going to be able to say they are the national championships of MTG Arena. And I can't wait for it all to go down, and it is catching up with us. It's unbelievable how fast it is coming. So we do have two teams today that are going to be looking to improve on their seedings so that they can make sure they can do their best to be as close to that number one seed as they can going into the playoffs. So we're only about, I think, maybe 2 weeks of playing away from everybody locking in, making sure their playoff berths are done. So actually, no, this is the last week, my producer tells me. So this is that last chance to be able to lock in those seedings. And if you're North Dakota, if you're the Mines, or you're North Dakota State, or Dakota State, excuse me, this is an important time. You don't want to go through your entire season with one loss or two losses and then get a loss towards the end before the playoffs, and then that affects your seedings. So let's take a look really fast. You can see here, South Dakota School of Mines and Technology are 9-2, 24-6 on the year. And Dakota State University is 9-1, 20-4 on the season. So they would love to be able to continue this streak. Dakota State University is also the number 3 team in our playoff rankings, and they would love nothing to get that win today and maybe move up a couple slots. But let's talk a little bit about our format and how it works every week. Is we are playing team events. So what that means is we have 3 players from one school, another 3 players from a different school, and they're going to be playing best of 3 matches against each other. And what happens is, the way we figure out who wins is whichever team gets to 2 match wins first will be our winner and get that extra W onto their record. And again, get even closer to getting those seeds improved for our finale in Las Vegas. Now, they are able to talk to each other. They're able to make sure they can discuss strategy, whatever it is. That is the best part of having your team. And also, you win together, you lose together, and we're going to find out exactly what's happening today. So now we also have our decks, and we do go through a deck tech of all the decks here so we can let you know exactly what's happening. So let's get into our deck tech right now, where we can see a little bit about what these teams are running. So we are going to start with our Mines, and if we look at Japsu, who is playing the red-green, so this is going to be almost certainly the Gruul Adventure deck. And as we look into the deck, you will see just that. You'll see, we'll start in our 1-drops with Pelt Collector. That's going to go into Paradise Druid, which will help us to be able to power out quite a few of these 4-drops that are, we call them a little out of control. Questing Beast, Vivian, also, both of these cards just do so much work. And most of these Gruul decks, as you will see, as well as just a lot of the decks that have red in it, no matter what, they are going to have Embercleave. And if you are not familiar with Embercleave, let me help you. The creature gets +1/+1, double strike and trample. And turns out if you put that on something that has Death Touch, you are taking a lot of damage. So love the red-green deck. Very consistent. Mana base is excellent. But I also see a Hellkite. And I haven't seen too much of Skargan Hellkite out there, but being able to have a haste flyer, and also if you don't need a haste, you're going to get a 5/5 flyer that can be able to shoot things down, and that gives you a lot of reach. And to be fair, you're going to be able to usually have extra mana, so getting to the 5 isn't terribly difficult, but this does give you some options up there. And you also see that Vivian is here, and I want to kind of talk about why Vivian is in the list. The big thing here is you are going to be able to put counters on things, give a trample, but being able to just basically have a creature fight is pretty strong. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. So you can take down Teferis. You can take down other Vivians. Whatever you need, Vivian Arcbow Ranger is there to help out. And if you ever just need to, get a creature from your sideboard, you can do that too. And let's take a look at the sideboard and see what is hiding in here. We do see Pyro Helix. Shifting Ceratops is also something that you could get in game 1 if you have Vivian and you need it. Cinder Vines, Lava Coil to deal with those pesky creatures that you normally wouldn't be able to deal with. But very, very solid list for the Gruul list from the South Dakota mines. And I was wondering if their actual mascot was a mine or if it was a miner, and I'm pretty sure they're just miners. It's not like a big mine that comes through. So we do see that is Japsu, but let's look at what his opponent is playing, and that would be Lost in Exile. So let's take a look. It looks like we've got Esper from Lost in Exile, and the Esper lists are pretty much they don't do too many countering. Okay, so what they're going to be doing is looking to just kill everything, and you can see that just starting at, we want to be able to, he does have Veto in the deck, so it looks like he has 1 Veto, so that's like the Miser's counterspell that's in here. But you see Thought Erasure, so we can go ahead and take the hand apart, Golden Egg, and the Guide to be able to sacrifice these, put them into the graveyard, and then you have the late game of Dance. And I don't know if you've ever had Dance, somebody really go crazy with Dance. It's going to be right there. Yep. So Dance of the Manse will be able to go really big to bring back artifact and non-aura enchantments. And if you hit 6 on it, they come back as 4/4s as well. So what other enchantments can we bring back? Well, if we look into our 3-drops, you can see we've got Oath, which Oath of Kaya, obviously Lightning Bolt or Lightning Helix, little baby, because it'll also make sure that when your opponent attacks, you can gain life and be able to do damage to them. If we continue to go up, nothing really crazy here. Teferi, you can continue to go up. Now, Treacherous Blessing. This is something new. So when Treacherous Blessing enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. When you cast a spell, lose a life. And if it ever becomes a target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So looking to find a way to target this with something. So I'm not exactly sure if there's something in the main deck that can target this, or we're just using it to draw 3 cards. So could be. We also have Shatter the Sky in 4, which is essentially your Wrath of God. And we have Doom Foretold, which this can do a lot of work because they have to start sacrificing things, and if they stop being able to sacrifice things, you're going to be able to make them lose life, draw a card, gain life, and make a 2/2. So when you have a lot of artifacts and things like that, just kind of plays into everything. And at the top, we're going to have Liliana and the Miser's Planar Cleansing. So against red-green, this looks like it would have a pretty good matchup, simply because you're going to have the Shatters of the Sky, you have Murderous Rider, Planar Cleansing, you've got a lot of things, and you also have Oath to kind of slow down their initial beatdown. So in this matchup, I definitely like the Esper deck, but again, it's all going to depend on how their mana comes out, because you are playing 3 colors. It's easy to possibly get stuck on the wrong color or only maybe draw 3, and the deck desperately needs to draw 4, and that's why you do have those 2-drop artifacts to kind of smooth out things. In the sideboard, I do see Cryo the Canarium. Isn't quite as essential in this matchup because of the -2/-2, much better against mono red, but still there. 1 Unmoored Ego probably won't come in here. The main deck of this is just really good against red-green, so I would expect the Esper deck to be able to take game 1 against red-green and then see what happens in the sideboard. So let's take a look at our next match, which is going to be Triple E versus Jacksonian. So let's look at Triple E first on the mono white. I like it. So mono white has mostly just been aggro, 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 and this deck does not, doesn't disappoint. You're going to have 8 1-drops. All of them have lifelink. And then obviously, Life's Bounty can protect your creatures from targeted removal. That definitely helps. You're going to go into our 2-drops of Ajani Primate, and then come down to our other 2-drops. And if you look here, Daxos and Impassioned Orator, these are, let's start with order. So it's essentially just creature comes into play, gain a life, exactly what your deck wants to do. And then Daxos does the same thing to make sure that whenever a creature comes in or leaves, you gain a life. But because you're playing mono white, your Devotion to White gives Daxos a huge butt. you're going to have Dawn of Hope. And if you look at Dawn of Hope, you can kind of guess where we're going with this. Whenever you gain a life, you may pay may pay 2, and then you can draw a card. So this deck, all it does is gain life. So being able to draw a lot of cards, and then possibly just make 1/1s gives you a lot of sustainability. And if we look at our 3-drops, you're going to see Angel of Vitality. And if you gain life, you basically double it. And if it gets +2/+2 if you have 25 or more life. So not very difficult for this deck to be able to do that. So I heard that 3-mana 4/4 flyers are pretty good. Then we have Heliod, and Heliod is pretty much the backbone of this deck because anytime you gain life, you can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. And Heliod in this deck is very easy to turn on because all you need is 5, and there's going to be the Queen at our 3-drop who gives you 3 white, as well as whenever you attack, you're able to put with Heliod, you can essentially put a counter on every single one of your creatures. So there's also Idyllic Tutor, and that's pretty interesting. It does give you the ability to go through, get some of these enchantments that you might need, like Dawn of Hope or Daxos. But then there's also Unbreakable Formation. And on Unbreakable Formation, creatures you control gain Indestructible. So when you want a Wrath, you can forget about that. And if you cast a spell during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain Vigilance. So when they need to fight, Unbreakable Formation makes it really difficult for a creature deck to be able to fight with them. And our last spot will go to Ajani in our 4-drops, and being able to gain life, also make more Ajani Pridemates that deal with it. And then obviously, if you have at least 15 more life than your opponent, exile it, and then it will go ahead and get rid of each artifact and creature your opponents control. So I have had that happen against me, and it didn't feel good at all. So want to do your best to try to deal with Ajani, but this deck is beyond consistent. So you're going to have your work cut out for you if you're Jacksonian. But let's take a look at what Jacksonian has as well. Now Jacksonian's playing mono green, and looks like all we have are some arbors. So looks like we just had a little technical issue with importing his deck, but we have a good idea that we have some green creatures in it, but we don't know what else is in his deck. So we'll just go ahead and move on from there and look at the Weeb and Uncomfortably Cheesy. So let's look at the Weeb. And now, Mono Red, we talked about this deck specifically, and we've seen it multiple weeks here on our show. You're ready to beat him down and then get that Embercleave rocking and rolling. And playing red is not as easy as you think it is. You have limited resources, and you'd have to make sure you don't miss any damage. So whenever I see somebody playing mono red, I'm always interested to know the math they're doing in their head, because they definitely have to be able to do that all the time. And doesn't look like there's anything crazy in this deck, but what you need to know about mono red that's a little bit new is on the 3-drop spot. This young man, Annex, his power just gets out of control. And then if you happen to kill all of the creatures, or you Wrath, or any number of those different things, he makes tokens that come back, and that can put a real downer on whatever you thought you were going to be able to do, because you thought the Wrath would get you out, and it doesn't, and could easily just bring back tokens and then play our 4-drop. And now our 4-drop is only a two of them in the deck, but Torban will be able to turn all those 1/1s into 3 damage creatures, and that is usually lights out. So not exactly sure what we have going on in our next deck, but let's take a look and see what Uncomfortably Cheesy is going to be able to bring to the fight. And it looks like Cheesy is playing a Gruul deck, and if we're going to be looking at the Gruul deck versus the mono red deck, we've talked about this last week, is that there is this issue where the mono red deck has a problem kind of, they can't go through the red green deck because it's just a little bit too big. They have to try to go wider than that. And we saw it last week where that just wasn't the case, and really had problems dealing with the beast, and any of the beasts. The 5/5 beast, the 4/4 beast, doesn't matter if they're Love Struck or whatever, they're a Hydra. Those cards are just really super hard for the mono red decks to deal with. So I almost always will say that the red green deck has an advantage there. And if we look at the mono white deck, if the if the mono white deck is playing against a aggro deck, I definitely want to give it to mono white. But if the mono white deck is playing against any type of control, usually becomes a little bit more difficult to deal with it if they don't draw the card that gives everybody indestructible. But all that being said, we don't play these games in thought. We actually do play the games, so we want to find out exactly who's going to win these. But before we do want to thank our sponsors, which is GameStop and HyperX, because obviously this is a big thank you that goes out to GameStop. GameStop is partnering with CSL the 2019 and 2020 season to activate collegiate esports tournaments online and in person. Visit www.gamestop.com/esports for more details about the GameStop Performance Center gaming clinics. GSPC gaming clinics are free for all players and give you an insider look at how the players you love to watch dominate the games you love to play. And speaking of the GameStop Performance Center, if you are a CSGO or a Fortnite player, CSL, GameStop, and Complexity Gaming will give you the chance to train with the best. Win a 4-day trip to the GameStop Performance Center in Frisco, Texas, where you will get to train like and play with the pros. All you need to do is submit a short video of your CSGO or Fortnite duo team showing us why you deserve the experience of a lifetime. And we also want to thank HyperX, because HyperX has been one of the leading pioneers in esports and gaming components, and they have always been committed to growing the community. And CSL is very happy to have the grand finals in the HyperX Esports Arena, April 17th through the 19th. It is going to be a great time, and we are going to see a lot of these teams there. But we've gone through our deck lists. We are ready to play. But before we get into our first match, we're going to take a quick break. And after that break, we're going to see who will it be. Will it be the Miners, or could it be Dakota State? We'll see you in a second. Into game one, Dakota State versus the South Dakota Mines. On the right side, Japsu looking at a decent red-green hand, would really like to have another land going on in that. And on the left side, Lost in Exile, that hand is real bad. Definitely going to mulligan that and try to get some more land. Would love to make sure they have at least a Wrath plus some targeted removal. And they go ahead and do that, and it looks like we're going to have our Golden Egg and Teferi and a bunch of land. So going to have to hope for Lost in Exile that they are able to draw a little bit better and get into some gas, because it's possible that this game could be over before it even gets started for Lost in Exile. There's a second land for Japsu, so now we're going to be able to get these 2 drops on. And the question is going to be, do you want to go with the haste or try to get the extra damage? I think part of me just wants to give it haste and just kind of get in there, but we're going to see. And there it is. There's the haste. Going to go ahead and get the 2 damage in, because every damage is super important. And if you go with 3, it's most likely that you won't be able to get as much damage. All right, there's a tap land. And for our Esper player, still not too much gas going on here. This Stomping Ground will probably just come into play tapped, because there's really not much going on here. Japsu is desperate for a 4th land to be able to get this questing beast in there. In comes Teferi. Teferi definitely wants to draw a card, and even though that will almost certainly spell death for Teferi, but there's no 4th land for Japsu. So we'll have to just play the Goblin out with haste, take Teferi down, and we'll be able to make a 1-1 afterwards. So down goes Teferi. Lovestruck Beast will go on an adventure and make a 1-1. And what does our blue-white deck say? More land is what the deck says. So now it's going to be time. Let's get some of these artifacts going. Let's draw some cards, because if we don't find something soon, this could be a wash. Another Dance of the Mance, that's not going to do much, so would almost certainly just play another artifact, and this is going to be the Globe, and draw a card, and there is the Wrath, but there is still no fourth land, and now it is not looking quite as good for our red-green player, because they're going to be able to attack for 3, and then play the Lovestruck Beast, but there's also like this thought of, man, maybe I should play the Paradise Druid, but we'll be able to get in for 3, take Lost in Exile down to 11, and now for Lost in Exile, going to go ahead and Shatter the Sky. That'll go ahead and give that extra card over to Japsu, and now can Japsu find the 4th land? There it is! Forest is in, and now we're going to have some questing Beast Party, and that will take him down to 7, and right now, Lost in Exile doesn't have anything. No way to deal with this. Thought Erasure is not going to do it. Well, yeah, gets rid of our favorite artifact. There's also this possibility that you might hit. Oh no, you can't. Yeah, you don't want to get that double strike. At 7 though, if he draws a land, we'll certainly just die. There's the land, and incoming Hellkite. So that's going to be 8, and that will be game. So even though the red-green deck got stuck on land and didn't have really didn't have too much going on, the Esper deck just too little too late, too many land, and wasn't able to get the job done before they got run over. So our red-green deck now looking in the sideboard for what do they want against control, and the Great Henge looks like wants to bring that in. The shifting shifter is like not that great against Esper because they don't really counter anyway. So there's really not too much to that. Lava Coil doesn't really do much. Doran's Ambush is like, it's okay. I wouldn't be going out of my way to have that in my list. Same thing for... Now, the thing about the Giant is Stomp is a shock. So it very much comes to sometimes being able, like if they play a Teferi and bounce something, you can like play it again, stomp the Teferi, and then be able to attack. I tend to like having that guy in there, and then when they do Wrath, you can come back. It's a 4/3, has a good body, and targeting it hurts. So I like all of that, but for the Esper deck, they definitely are going to look to just hopefully have a better hand. They mulled to 6 last time and didn't really get any action. So just lots of land there. And for Lost in Exile, let's try to get back into it. We'll be on the play here. And this hand is 2 lands. Ugh, gosh, this is another rough one. No black. So that one's going to go back. For red-green, looks like they've got Cindervines, Pelt. I mean, on the draw, I think that hand's fine. So we're going to have another mulligan here. We'll go ahead and drop one of the 2-drop artifacts. And for our red-green deck, they are just going to be looking for 2 running lands. Forest and, I mean, doesn't even matter if it has... Yeah, well, no, you need a mountain too. So, yeah, Forest Mountain will be great. Don't have any real 2-drops they're worried about, so Thought Erasure will probably hit the God here? Oh, no, hits a Cindervines. Okay. And there we go. There's 1 mountain. And so we're going to be able to get in for 1 right here. And I would assume that this Oath will come down and knock the Collector down. There's 2 damage, so this is almost certainly. There's the Oath. And Oath will go ahead and send our Pelt Collector bye-bye. And now Lost in Exile will be going back up to 20. And here we go. we're going to go ahead and pass that land. Would love to get a forest here to turn on all of the cards in hand. And right now for Lost in Exile has 2 more removal spells, but that's about it. So here's the Bone Crusher Giant going to go ahead and shoot for 2, and that's fine. I don't think I have any problem with that because didn't have a 3-drop there. So now we'll be able to play the 4-3. The 4-3 will almost certainly get oathed, but again, you did 2 damage. Feel pretty good about it. There's a Teferi. But here's the Oath first, like we said. That will go ahead and target our Giant, take him down, and back up to 21 for Lost in Exile with only 2 cards. Unfortunately, drew 3 mountains as opposed to 2 mountains, 2 forests. So Questing Beast is going to hang out as well as Shifting Ceratops. This is a little tough, but I think you just play the 2 damage Haster and get the damage in, because they don't have counter spells, so the only thing you're worried about is a Thought Erasure on your god, and just start the beatdown. And then even if untap and play Teferi and plus it, if you happen to draw a forest, you'll be able to take the Teferi down, and then Lost in Exile will be in a heap of trouble. And could play just shift if he draws another forest, could play Shifting Ceratops. And Teferi does not play well with that card, because that card definitely has Pro Blue. So here we go. There's the return. And this is what we saw last time, just trying to get some gas, is willing to sacrifice his Teferi, does draw another one, and this time still can't find a second green. So Goblin is going to be able to eat yet another Teferi. It's not often that this 2-2 Haste Man gets to eat multiple Teferis in a match, but here we are. There's some damage for your trouble, and down goes Teferi. And can Japsu find a forest? Because now it's going to get a little dicey, right? Because you can play Teferi. If you plus it this time, you still... It's going to go ahead and just run it back, and we'll go ahead and play the Golden Egg. So this little goblin is going to eat a 3rd Teferi, and Lost in Exile is still looking for something. And this is where playing just the straight blue-white is so helpful, because you can untap and play Dream Trawler, and that's that. There's just nothing. There's really not much they can do to it. We'll go ahead and play the Spellbreaker. Has the mana to play it. Don't see why not. Can't find another green, and more stuff that gets rid of artifacts, but and enchantments, but none of those are to be found right now. So here comes Erebos' Intervention to go ahead and take down the 3-3. And that was part of the reason I wanted to play the 2-2 last time. You still don't need a lot of haste, so you could just play the God here. And what do we draw off the top? A Hollowed Fountain. Ain't going to do much there. You could try to destroy this enchantment, but unfortunately, it's not about that life. Indestructible, friend. So Teferi is going to get eaten out of the graveyard. And is it Clothis? God of Destiny is going to start going to work on that life total. And now the question is, what do you play here? Part of me just wants to play a 2-2 Haster, but that's really not going to do that much. So if I'm not going to play that, then I just probably play Pelt Collector and then hope to draw another forest somewhere. Just thinking about playing this Goblin. And incoming, I would imagine he's going to make it... He's going to go with the haste again. I thought there was a possibility he might just make it a 3-power. Because if you make it to 3-power, he has... Or Lost in Exile has to have another Oath, has to like burn a Wrath, something to that effect, and none of that happened. So, going to start continuing to eat this graveyard and get this little incremental damage in. And unfortunately for Japsu, still unable to find another green mana. And this is part of the reason I wanted to play the Pelt Collector first. But now, looking at... I mean, probably going to have to play the Pelt Collector here, right? Unless you want to play a 1-1 and then pass. That doesn't sound that great. And still debating why I can't find another forest. And here's the pet collector, or spelt pelt collector. And for Japsu, they're not out of the woods here by any means. Lost in Exile is getting flooded and has 2 sideboard cards that do nothing. But right now, I mean, even with that, like, if the double green falls, it's going to be really, really bad for poor Lost in Exile. But even with that, any land that comes through is going to be a problem. So God's still doing work. Don't have 5 mana for that just yet. So this is almost certainly just going to be an attack. We only have 1, 2, 3 green devotion. So, oh, red and green. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So actually we're pretty close. If we would have played, would have had to have played the Lovestruck Beast outright to get to 6. So that's definitely was possibility. But if we're going to do that, are we going to make a 1/1 here? Or we're going to just play the Lovestruck Beast? We'll make the 1/1. And now, Japsu just looking for anything. And here is a Teferi. And, gosh, what do you do here? You can bounce a token. You can bounce the enchantment and kill the 2/2, but you're still not doing... Oh, here we go. Got a Doom Foretold, though. But unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot of things to sacrifice to said Doom Foretold. So that actually might not work the way it's supposed to work. Teferi's going to go ahead and eat in here, and another Teferi is going to bite the dust. The question is, I think he played Gruul Spellbreaker, which should take us to 6 devotion, right? And then we're just getting busy. Let's see. I see a next as opposed to playing a Gruul Spellbreaker, so must know something I don't know. Maybe is it 7 instead of 6? Would have to highlight over it to see if that's the case. Maybe I'm missing something. It's very possible. Go ahead and play the Lovestruck Beast now, and that'll take you up to 5. So if nothing dies next turn, you will be able to get to 7 if it's 7 and not 6, like I was thinking. But here's a Shadow to the Sky. Going to go ahead and draw a card. And there is the other green that has been desperate for. And a Doom Foretold. So in this case, how do you do this? I mean, you can just keep playing. Yeah, you play the Questing Beast, beat down for 4, and maybe you can race Lost in Exile and make him have to lose his own Doom Foretold. Oh, wait a minute. Dance of the Manse. 1, 2, 7. Didn't burn it that time. Temple of Ban will go ahead and put a Paradise Druid on the bottom. And we're going to just keep getting this damage in. And the question is, what is it going to be? I would assume it would be another Questing Beast. And it is not. It is going to be the Hellkite. And that's going to be 4 damage in. Oh, look at that. Look at the little Hellkite. 4 damage down to 7. And there goes the Doom Foretold, unfortunately. But now, oh, wow, there's a Planar Cleansing and a Dance of the Manse. And I'm not sure how many artifacts and enchantments are in the graveyard. I'm pretty sure there's at least 2 Oaths, one of the 2 casting cost artifact, and a Dance. So you're going to get at least 3 4/4s, but none of them are flying. So you probably have to Planar Cleansing first, so that you don't die to a top-decked... Oh, no. You won't have to worry about that, because when the Oaths come in, they'll deal 3 damage each and kill the Hellkite. And then you'll be in a very good place. Oh, well, and on top of that, you are going to be able to, I was going to say, make them sacrifice the Hellkite, have 2 4/4s. Wait, what? Why didn't they pay 1 more? And bring back the second Oath? And then they have an artifact in there too? Am I thinking of a different game? Okay, multiple 4/4s at 10. Gonna have to be sacrificing a bunch of stuff here because of the Doom Foretold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, so can play Questing Beast plus God, but then lose your God if you play it afterwards. So here you can block if you block with the Oath. The problem there becomes, so right now you can play your Spellbreaker so that you can keep your 4/4 around. At 6, that's good too. Doom Foretold is going to go ahead and trigger now. And there goes one of the Oaths. And here is a Shatter the Sky as well as a Planar Cleansing. And here's what we talked about, is being able to have a haste. Oh, okay, so he might have removed the other stuff. Okay, with the Clothis. Is now you have a flying creature that can go over the top, and now you're super dead. Right? Just attack in the air for 5, and we're done. Or for 4. Game's over. And there's not much to do here. The hands were really not that impressive from Lost in Exile. Could never get that corner turn. And God plus Hellkite do the work. Lots of haste for our man Japsu. And Japsu, the hands that Japsu had also weren't that great. Was stuck on double green, or not without, excuse me, stuck without double green for a long time. But in the end, the red-green deck comes through over our Esper control deck. So now we are going to be getting into our second match. But before we do, we are going to go to a quick break, and we're going to find out, will this be a clean 2-0 sweep, or will we have a third deciding match? That's going to happen right after the break. All right, it is time to get into our match 2. The South Dakota Mines are up 1-0 over Dakota State, trying to close this out. And now we're going to see, it appears that we have our mono white deck versus, I would assume that this Bant deck is just the control ramp Bant, but we're going to find that out right now. And it does look that way. Both people are going to go ahead and keep their hands. Incoming Temple of Mystery. We'll keep the land on top because we want to be able to cast all of this great stuff. Have Croesus in hand, have Nissa, Elsbeth, and the only issue we're going to have is this red-green deck doesn't have, or excuse me, this Bant deck doesn't have too many answers when the deck goes super wide. I don't know if they're playing Shatter the Sky or not in the main deck. Almost certainly to be playing it in the sideboard, but we're going to have another Impassioned Orator. It's going to come in, gain a life, and drop 2 damage in, and then Growth Spiral will happen at the end of this turn, and then be able to start ramping and finding a little bit more gas before this white deck gets a little bit out of control. All right. And here we go. So, yeah, this deck is definitely in the main deck. Doesn't have any Wraths, and in the sideboard doesn't have any Wraths either. So this could be a tough matchup for Jacksonian of SDM. And Triple E from DSU has a couple of 2-2s. That is probably one of the smaller Krasis you'll see. Now here comes the Pridemate. Pridemate's going to go ahead and get some triggers, and all of a sudden, it's big. 4-4, and doesn't attack with the Impassioned Orders there. I guess that's not a fine trade. So incoming Nissa, and now we're going to see there'll be a 3-3 that comes about. And they have 2 other white lands in their hand, so being able to untap their white mana doesn't hurt as much. And here comes a Ajani, and we're going to make another really big Ajani. So another 4-4 is going to be able to come in off the Planeswalker, and now he's got a 4-4 and a 6-6. So Nissa is going to have to fight a really big Lion, and Krasis goes ahead and just jumps and does the best to help take it down, but has a second white here, and really would love to play Elspeth Conquers Death on Ajani, because they can't target anything else, right? So hits the Ajani here, but doesn't have anything else left to play. Can make another 3-3, but turns out when you play the Queen next turn, she's going to come into play. Both Ajanis are going to get +2/+2. Everything's going to, when they attack, they're going to get 2 more counters, so you're going to be dealing with some really angry Lions. And this is what we talked about. If you don't have any type of removal, 8-8 and 6-6 coming to take down, and now 9-9 and 7-7, and now 10-10 and 8-8, because all of that seems fair. So I believe that 18 damage will just go ahead and go straight to Nissa's head. And the problem is going to be that next turn, everything's going to get into... Oh, just going to go ahead and concede. Has had enough. How am I supposed to beat 10-10 Lions? And here we go. Into the sideboard, I saw a Dream Trawler, so there was still that available. But other than that, there are no sweepers available for Jacksonian, and that's not good news. So Triple E is going to do their best to try to take down Jacksonian before Dream Trawler comes on board, and that looks like it could be very, very possible. Still does have a lot of great, creatures. They could play some really big ones, but in the last game you saw a 2/2 Krasis. We didn't see the Questing Beast, didn't see Teferi, so things were just a little bit just too big. And then to be fair, once you get a 10 power Ajani, there's not too much you're going to be able to do that unless you also have like a 10 power Krasis or something, and then they can still make it indestructible. There's a lot of problems that are going to happen. So Dakota State looking much better with that game 1 victory in match 2, and try to just get this a quick closeout, because Jacksonian was like, I had enough. Still thinking about, and there are definitely, what we talked about is at the team events, you can talk to your teammates. You can use, they have like 30 some seconds left on their clock. So you want to talk about, hey, should I be bringing in, Ceratops just as a creature? What should I be doing here? Do I need to have Counterspell just in case to be able to take down some of these silly things? Like if you have Mystic Dispute. So it's really difficult because this deck can get under you. It can get bigger than you. It just does a lot of stuff. And Voracious Hydra is probably one of your only outs to being able to deal with it. And here we go. Gonna go into game 2 between South Dakota Mines and Dakota State. And Dakota State needs to pick up this victory in this match in order to stay live. So, up 1 game, Triple E is gonna go ahead and get this hand, and a 2-drop and a 3-drop. And 5 land. That's not that great for that deck, simply because it you don't really need any more than 4 land, so you already have 1 more than you need. Drew a Healer's Hawk, which actually is going to turn out to be pretty good, because we'll be able to play the Ajani's Pridemate. Oh my gosh, and there's a Heliod behind it, so this Hawk will come in for 1. The lifelink will turn that Pridemate into a 3/3, and now we'll be able to ramp with Uro, and we'll get to see the sweetest animation in the business. But this Pridemate is a problem. Because next turn, it's going... Okay, so here we're going to bounce a Johnny's Pride. Good plan. Teferi will get killed here. And here is Heliod. We'll be able to go ahead and take down Teferi here, get that counter. Now you got a 2-2 Hawk. And on Jacksonian side, still really nothing to write home to mom about. Sitting on 3. Breeding Pool could come into play tapped. And you can play an Uro to get another land in. But now you're going to be dealing with some real problems if Heliod gets turned on because of the Queen. Could be a lot of life gain. Also could... I doubtfully would just try to play a Pride Mate here, even though... you know, once you get Pride Mate over a 6-6, there's pretty much really... Oh, well, Questing Beast can deal with a 6-6, but that was pretty much it in the land of what can possibly deal with a large Pride Mate. All right. Has a 4th land. Here comes the Queen, which will turn on Heliod, and now we got all kinds of problems, boys. Life gain when you attack, which will put counters on everything. 3-3. 4-4, 5-5, and now more life. A 5-5 Hawk that is only going to get worse next turn, because if you play the Questing Beast, Heliod has Indestructible, so doesn't actually care. We'll be able to fight that down, but the problem here is you still have to deal with this huge Hawk. Granted, it already has lifelink, but I mean, this could be an issue. Can he find a way to deal with this Hawk before it gets ludicrous? It turns into a 6-6, could turn the Pride Mate into a 4-4. Okay, goes with a 4-4 Pride Mate instead of the 6-6 Hawk. At 11. And here is the Questing. Whoop, not going to do Questing Beast. I was going to say, you probably could play the Nissa first and use the mana to just play the Questing Beast afterwards. Triple E would love to find just a little bit more devotion so that Heliod can get busy. But Jacksonian has no lifelink, and Triple E's at 33. So doesn't have to block, can just attack with... So it's a 5-5 now, but when it attacks, it'll turn into a 6-6. I wouldn't have even blocked. There's just... I guess if you block... Okay, block, give it lifelink to be able to make the Hawk bigger, but that doesn't really speed up your clock any. Here's the bounty. And is going to go ahead and attack down Nissa. And the reason why is because you don't want them to make a huge Krasis, which would have been the next play. So that's a very heads-up play from Triple E. And Jacksonian's still thinking, though, like, I probably still need to make this huge Krasis. But it's still, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Like, it still just chump blocks the Hawk. So going to make it a 4 power. Picked up a Nissa, but that is not going to do it. Scry would love to find another Krasis on top, and it is a land. So for Jacksonian, just needs to dodge Heliod getting devotion here. A 3 attack will mean absolutely nothing, so if he attacks, we'll just take that, who cares. But no attacks, and have a 6-6, and the draw is a land. So time to get busy. 6-6 is going to come in, which will make it a 7, and then that's the clock. So can block with the 4-4 and just chump. I mean, you don't... So if you do it now, you have to do it now. Well, yeah, you have to do it now. Because if you don't do it now, next turn they just make it pro-blue and you die. Okay, well, looks like that is the choice. Because next turn just makes this pro-green and attacks for 7, and then that's the game. right? If I could, this is one of those times where I wish we had a spectator client so I could take a look. But I'm pretty sure that gives it, I don't know if it gives it, I'm pretty sure that card gives it protection. Yep. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and untap. And the attacks are going to come because why not? At 49. Won't block. There's no reason to. And here is 2 Devotion. And that will turn Heliod on. And I mean, turning Heliod on here doesn't actually matter. Should be able to just give the 6/6 protection from blue. And there we go. We'll sacrifice, gain a life, make that a 7/7, and that will be game. Protection from green. I think you put protection from blue just on the off chance that there was some sort of blue bounce spell there, but there isn't. And that is going to be it. It is too much white weenie for our deck, and it is now tied up because we talked about it before. It's really hard if you can't wipe out all of those white creatures, and you saw there, they were just too big. Again, it is now tied 1-1. We're going to go into our last match. Who's it going to be? Will it be our number 3 in our power rankings, or could it be the Miners trying to increase their seed as we get closer to Vegas? Only one more match to find out, and we'll do that right after the break. All right. We are now into our deciding match between Dakota State and South Dakota Mines. Looks like we have a mulligan for Uncomfortably Cheesy and 2 pretty good cards. We'll be able to play a 1-drop and then a 2-drop, but it might, or excuse me, a 1-drop and then a 3-drop, and that might not be enough with Mono Red just looking you up, because now there's going to be this 1-drop. You're going to be able to have the Robber of the Rich or the Steamkin coming in. So now Steamkin is in. 1/1's going to come through. And the issue here for the red-green deck is you have to get your Lovestruck Beast in here as soon as you can. Because Lovestruck Beast is just a huge body that the mono-red deck has a really hard time getting through. So you want to be able to get that going as fast as possible. Here is a shock for the Pelt Collector. So now we're sitting on a 2/2. Have another shock available. But that's probably not necessary right now. Is still going to have to think about how they're going to get through this Lovestruck Beast. Yeah, because the Lovestruck Beast on 3 is going to be a small problem. Because it's going to go Lovestruck Beast and then into Questing Beast. And both of those guys don't play well with others. And like we talked about, here is the 5/5 Lovestruck Beast. Just a wall right now. No 1/1s. Can't attack with it. And you didn't want to block? Get out of here. Get out of here. yeah, was still desperately looking for a third land is the Weeb being able to. I mean, you need a third and a fourth land, and here is a 4/4 with trample, with haste, with death. Oh, excuse me, and haste. Sorry, not trample. Haste, death touch, and all kinds of other fun things. The Robber of the Rich will go ahead and make a 3/3, but we're still having a small problem with how do we get through a 5/5. How do we get through just a 4/4? And on 2 lands, it's, I'm not sure. And the other problem is that even if you draw a third land and are able to like attack and then try to Embercleave, he can, in response, possibly stomp whoever you target. Why did that cost 4? All right, gonna go ahead and just do it this way. So now you've got a 4/4, 5/5, and a 4/3. There is a third land, finally. And Annex is pretty big, your own 4-power creature, but you still have this issue of you just not sure. Like, okay, so let's think about how can we win this game? It's going to have to be Annex with an Embercleave on it. That's the only thing I can imagine that would work. And right now, here come the attacks. And what will you do? All right, we'll go ahead and block. And this will make some 1/1s that aren't able to block, but does get rid of the Questing Beast. So we've got that part done. Now we can also shock. So this, in response, will definitely just go ahead. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Oh, it doesn't have a free red to be able to shock. Oh wait, yes he does. Yeah, because that will take. Or no, okay. Just gonna keep playing around with this for a minute. All right, Lovestruck Beast is now in. And there is a huge problem in 2 5/5 Lovestruck Beasts, but looking now to double block, yep. And Embercleave can come in and take both of them down. And here we go. There's going to be 5 there. And 5 there. So now it's a bunch of 1/1s and a 4/3. But the thing about these 1/1s, as we talked about, is can the Weeb find a 4th land? Is it possible? Robber the Rich is going to be fine, but still, here's the auto pay. Will he go for? Got to have a counter, right? Make this a 4/4. And here comes the 4/3 attack because the 1/1s cannot block. So even if the Weeb draws a land, let's see. I'm trying to think of the best. All right, so you're at 8. Your opponent has lethal. Robber of the Rich. Robber of the Rich. You have more cards in hand, so that doesn't do much. Yep, 2 damage, and this is why Stomp is an amazing card. And the 1/1s can't block, so gonna have to keep this shock for one of the tokens. But even still, here's the shock on the 1/1. Nope. Nope. It will be just death. So, game 1 is gonna go to our red-green deck, and we pretty much knew that this particular matchup favors the red-green deck, especially with the red deck not able to hit the 3rd land. And without the 3rd land, the deck just 3rd and 4th land, the deck really doesn't have much chance against these huge 5/5 creatures in Love Struck Beast, even a 4/3 giant is bigger than pretty much everything you have. So that is super tough. So we're going to see if it's possible for the Weeb to have a much better hand, because the hand not only is going to have to, be a keepable hand, but it's going to have to be a very fast hand. And we just weren't able to see that just yet. Getting lava coils will be super important. That hand sucks, so that one is definitely going back. But this hand is much better. Will probably bin a land here. I would bin a land and just pray to get a third land because everything else is playable. So we do have our 1/1 that comes in, and for our red-green deck, has a Pelt Collector, 3 drops and a 2-drop. This hand is fine, but for the Weeb, dear God, help me. I just need 2 lands off the top. Help! Lava Coil is going to go ahead and hit our man over here, and Pelt Collector is probably not going to attack, and there is not a land. And wants to save the Lava Coil for bigger creatures like Questing Beast, so we'll just be attacking with the 1/1. And if you're uncomfortably cheesy, you know something's up here, right? You're like, this is not right. Like, they clearly, if that was the play, it makes me believe that they didn't have anything. So with my hand, I probably would have just blocked there. But here we go. Spellbreaker is in. You've got a 4/4, which is pretty big. And Annex is like, oh, okay, I guess. And on time, here is the other green mana. So now we're going to be able to play, well, it doesn't play Questing Beast here. So will be Vivian this time. And Vivian will get to fight a little bit, looks like.
Take back what rightfully belongs.
And since it's only a 3 power, that'll only make 1 token.
They bite.
But it's important to make sure that Annex dies. Because really, that's the only thing in the deck that does is really threatening to you. Especially when you have this 4/4. So gets 2 draws off the top, and those are nice ones. Unfortunately, oh, it's a red creature. So we'll be able to red cap melee, eat this man, and play the 1/1. So we're back in business now. And especially, so now we could play Questing Beast attack, and then you're just hoping that the Weeb doesn't draw a 4th land. Yep, I like Questing Beast here. And we've got a race, 14-12. There's a shock, but we have 6. There's 1, so could play the Ember Cleave, which would make it a 2/2 double striker. So whatever blocks is going to get killed. So the Questing Beast will go ahead and get killed with a double strike, but it does take down the 1/1. So it's now 12-11, and we'll go ahead and equip. And this will be just another 4/4. And this is perfectly fine. So this isn't quite as great. Is just thinking about like math here, right? Like if you block, it has double strike. Taking 4 takes you to 7. And the problem is that you take the extra damage on top of that. And now that you're at 3, I don't know how you can win anymore, right? Because now the Weeb can just attack all out and you're dead, right? Because he only needs 1. Oh, you got a shock in his hand. I would have been definitely tempted to attack with the 1/1. Instead, just go ahead and shock. And that is the fast hand that we were looking for from the mono red deck. And now we're going to get into game 3. And the red green deck said, man, I didn't even get to play that game. I thought my hand was halfway decent. Unfortunately, it was not. Turns out that 5/5s are strictly better than 4/4s. So not having the Love Struck Beast there means that it was much harder to block there, and the extra damage did a lot of work here. Not sure. Like, Paradise Druid is fine, especially on the play, to be able to get into your Questing Beast early. I just wasn't sure about that Vivian play. Like, I think out of... Okay, so we've got Lava Coil, 2/2, Embercleave, and a Questing Beast. So we have Baby Voltron, Questing Beast plus Embercleave. And on the other side, Tin Street Dodger as well as Annex their own Embercleave. So only needs a second land. Excuse me, a fourth land to be able to get this going. And didn't... What the heck just happened here? Didn't make it a... made it a haste, but didn't attack? Awkward. All right, well, there's a third land. And for the Weeb, has 4 lands, has Annex, Embercleave. It is looking ugly. And there are no 5/5s present. This will be a 4/4, though. And for Uncomfortably Cheesy, gonna definitely feel a little bad about missing some damage here. Lava Coil will definitely be hitting Annex here, so won't make any tokens because it's going to be exiled. And now you get to go to work. Still doesn't attack with the 2/2 at 18. I'm not sure what he's afraid of here. I almost certainly would have attacked with both of those. Scorch Spitter is in. No blockies. And this is why I was saying you might as well attack with the 2/2. So there's essentially 4 damage that was missed by Uncomfortably Cheesy so far. Questing Beast incoming. Now, you're at 17. I don't see of any math that has you losing if you attack with everything because the Questing Beast has Vigilance. So I would attack with everyone, and there's no question. That puts his clock to 10. 4, 8, 10. Yeah, so 10 damage puts him to 4. And then has... So if he doesn't block here, he's at 4. And an Embercleave is... That's a wrap. Oh, doesn't block. So the game's essentially over. Because on the next turn, there will be an attack. And even if he plays Torben here, it won't matter. Embercleave's not enough. Embercleave's only going to hit for an extra 3. I would not block here. There's no combination of cards that's going to do 16 damage to you. Unless they happen to have, like, Giant Growth in their deck. And even then, it would be... Giant Growth would be 4, 5, 10, 11. Yeah. So, no block. Don't do it. Yeah, like, there's just no reason to block. Like, I don't understand. The only thing that can happen is an Embercleave that kills your 4. Now, I mean, I guess you're still dead anyway. He's still dead anyway. You have a 4/4 and a 2/2 to his 1 red. So, irrelevant. So, the Embercleave actually is horrid, too. But that is going to be it. GG is called. And red-green is going to come through against the mono-red deck. And just like we talked about in last week, this matchup just favors the red-green deck in some sort of way because they've got so many 4/3s, they've got 4/4s, they've got 5/5s, and the mono-red deck just has very little way to be able to get through them if they get dropped onto the board. And that's exactly what we saw. So that is going to be it. This is our last week. There's no more. It's been a pleasure to be with you until we get to our playoff rounds. So the regular season is going to be done with. And I also believe we're going to have a special show match that's going to happen, which details will come out on that a little bit later. But again, I'm your host, Rob AJG. Hopefully you dealt with me enough because, again, I was dealing with the nerd flu from GP Phoenix. We've all been there when you go to a GP. Just lots of people having fun with mystery packs. And if you haven't gone, go to a GP, do the mystery booster draft. It's so much fun. But until then, I'm your host. I'll see you in Vegas. Have a good weekend.
hard to ignore all the things we said. I wish I could change it. A little shaky, our emotions got the best of us lately. I got issues, yeah, you got them too. Our feelings too bruised to fight. We can say a lot in a little bit. Pressure in our minds made us throw a fit. But got that kind of love and that ain't counterfeit. It's foolish and useless without your love. Without your love. Turning pages, communication, maybe focus on the basics. Well, let's face it, being open isn't easy as they say it. I got issues, yeah, you got them too. Our feelings too bruised to fight. We can say a lot in a little bit. Pressure in our minds made us throw a fit. But got that kind of love and that ain't counterfeit. It's foolish and useless without your love.
I don't know who it is, but I like it. And y'all hitting that freaking follow button. Look, Limelight subscribed